good?
Yeah, okay.
Linda, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. Pleasure, Simon, yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm going to start by saying thank you, because you've made a massive difference in my life. And, during the course of today, I will share some of the things that you've done for me, because it has made a massive difference. And, I came to you, so I wanted to be more present. I wanted to be more calm, wanted to be more content. And, I have the gift of doing all of those things for my wife and my little boy now. So, I'd say thank you up front just for everything you've done for me.
Oh, well, it's an absolute thrill to have been able to help you, Simon, because I know that underneath you're this amazing person, but you didn't know it yourself.
Well, I'm interested for us to talk through rapid transformational therapy, because it's not something I think a lot of people know about, or not enough people know about. I certainly didn't know about it, and I'd done some talking therapies in the past, and I think a lot of people would be aware of talking therapies, but this is really different to that. So I think, and I only found out about, we call it RTT, rapid transformational therapy. I only found out about it because I heard about it from Marissa Pear on a podcast with Stephen Bartlett, which I'm a big fan of. And it's only because of that I actually was able to find it, and it's really changed my life in a really positive way.
I know.
So I'd love to. From your perspective, what is RTT?
Well, RTT is, as it says, rapid transformational therapy. So it is about getting into the subconscious brain, and that is where all the memories are held, and that's where all our beliefs come from. So when we are behaving in a certain way, it goes back to what is held in the subconscious brain. And so we may want to change, we may read lots of books, understand exactly what we need to do, but the habit is always pulling you back to what is in that subconscious brain. So if when you were growing up, and usually I think the scientists say up to 7, when those are the critical years, because what you say to your children, they take as absolute fact, because they are in a hypnotic state then. So when you're talking to your children and you say, oh, don't be silly, oh, you're accident prone, oh, you're not, oh, you always get that wrong. That is what they're believing. It's going into the subconscious brain. But if you're saying you are brilliant, you are clever, you are kind, you are funny, that will go into their subconscious brain. And so that is what drives our behaviour when we get older. So it's almost like that even when we're adults, we're still got the programs of when we are children.
It really goes back to, also now as a parent with little Logan, who's 2, I've become really careful and mindful of what I say to him since I've been talking with you, because I didn't realise in those first 7 years it's really beginning to program who that person's going to become as an adult.
Yeah.
Because like you said, those memories, those thoughts get locked into the subconscious, and that's maybe how you become, how you feel. It's a really big message for parents, I think.
It is, yeah. So it is possible, though, even with the programming, which some people have had terrible traumas in their life, to change those programs, because you can. Our mind pulls us back to what is familiar. So we need to change those programs by forming new habits. So what RTT does, it takes you back to some occasions where the beliefs have been formed into the subconscious brain. We then look around together as if we're detectives to see what's actually happened, why you are reacting in that way. And then we transform the thinking, because understanding is power. When you understand, oh, that's why I react like that. That's because this happened to me. Then you can change the program. But how we change the program with RTT is we heal the wound that's in there. So you as the adult heals the wounds of the child and carries the child within you, with you.
Okay.
And then you listen to a recording of how you truly are, how you truly want to be. And that is the habit that gets changed. So instead of running the old program, you're running the new program.
You've almost made it sound like a software upgrade.
It
almost.
is. Absolutely. You take a computer, what you put in, it's what program you put in. If you don't like that program, you change it. It's the same with a record. If you don't like the record, change the record. But it's giving people the power to have the choice and not be run by their subconscious brain, which is not true. They're limiting beliefs.
It's interesting because these limiting beliefs, I didn't even realise I had them, until probably about 2 years ago. And I started really struggling with a bit of depression and anxiety. And it's odd, really, because it came to me at the strangest time of my life, because I was probably, I would say, the happiest. I'm really happily married, just had little Logan. And I don't know whether it was created because of COVID, because, our lives and our habits changed. Financially, I was in a good place. So I was like, and I had a good job. So it didn't really make any sense of why I was experiencing, these depressive states or positions. And then that would lead into drinking or overeating or just anything just to make me feel better. Now, I can put it back to stress. I think maybe stress through work, because, I'm trying to do well in my sales career and trying to do well for the company that I work for. But I couldn't really put my mind, put my finger on where it came from. But so with that, why do you think maybe it can come out later? Because I definitely feel like when I was 20, even when I was 30, I didn't really have these ruminating thoughts constantly. Why does it come out maybe later? Or was that just perhaps specific to me?
Well, I think it comes out at all different times. We get life shocks, don't we? Things happen in life. We might be going along very nicely, and then all of a sudden something, we lose someone or something happens, and COVID was big for people, because suddenly we couldn't do things. We were told to stay in. I rebelled, first of all, because the government came out, or Boris came out and said over 70s had to stay in. And I was over 70. And it was like, how dare, someone tell me that I can't have my freedom. And I wanted to rebel against that and say I'm not staying in. But my children convinced me that I had to.
So maybe what we're discussing here is that maybe it's about a triggering event. Maybe there's events that trigger something within you, which maybe is then locked in from childhood, but it takes those events for it to come out potentially.
Yeah.
Is it? Do you think it can be around a triggering event?
Oh, it's absolutely a trigger. Yeah, something triggers you, and that then takes you back, because you can ignore what's going on in the subconscious brain. If you're happy, if things are going well for you, because you're producing the right chemicals in your brain when you're happy, when you're being successful. But as soon as something happens, it might be an illness, or it might be COVID, or you may lose someone, it goes back to what is in the subconscious brain. So it can hit people at any time, but it is something that happens. I call it a life shock often. It's some shock to the system, and then it pulls you back to what's in the subconscious brain.
Let's talk about the history of RTT and where it came from. Then we can kind of delve into more kind of what it is and how it's helped and why it's making a huge difference to millions of people. I think. Where did RTT come from?
Well, it came from a lady called Marissa Peer. And I hadn't heard of Marissa up to 4 years ago when I also listened to a podcast.
Okay.
Now, I was a therapist at the time, or I was a coach at the time. I had trained in CBT, NLP, other psychological traditional therapies. And I was successful in that. I was mainly in the corporate world. I used to go into organisations and help with their leaders and their managers and to help them to become better leaders, better managers. And I had a very successful business. I enjoyed what I did. And I used to see people on an individual basis as well. You know, I'd often, because my background was in a lot of conflict management, because I used to negotiate with our unions in the 80s. And there was a lot of conflict in that time between management and the union representatives. And I was always very interested in how people's beliefs just governed how they would behave. So that's why I went into the traditional coaching to begin with. And it was successful. But if there's something deep-rooted, I found it was very difficult for people to shift their belief system. And then I listened to a podcast and I listened to Marissa. And as soon as I listened to her, I knew I wanted to train in RTT. So I just went to one of her seminars and signed up immediately, because I knew that was the link that I needed, that getting into that subconscious brain. And I also like things that are quick. I would never see people for a very long time, because if it didn't work within 6 sessions, I thought it was a waste of people's money.
Right.
Because when you go to a traditional therapist, you talk over your issues, and you have an hour perhaps, and then at the end of it you go. You haven't really got any tools to really help you. So RTT gives you that within the session.
Well, I think I'll talk to that for a second, because I think I'm a living example of that, because I was, really looking for, I knew in my mind that I wasn't thinking right. I was feeling down, feeling very depressed, but not all the time. Some days I had some really good days. Other days I just train harder at the gym, I'd feel a bit better, or I'd go for a long run, I'd feel a bit better. But then if I missed any of this, I would quickly start feeling very low again. So I did start by going, I'm going to go to the traditional therapy, talking therapy, and have a conversation with someone and just try and find out more about it. And it did serve a purpose, because it gave me a lot of information around what had happened in the past and maybe things I'd held on to, those sorts of things. But I did find, and it was a very lovely lady that I went to see, so it's certainly no reflection on the lady I went to see. She was fantastic. But I did find that after, say, a 50-minute session, I'd shared and I'd released a lot of things, but then now I'm asking more questions, and now I haven't got a resolution to that, and I might be left in that state for the rest of the day. So as much as I might journal or I might try and get past that moment, I'm like, I don't know, there's no fix. And I did ask during those sessions, I was like, I need to know what the plan is to find, like, how am I going to feel better when, you keep asking me how I feel, but I'm like, I feel terrible. And like, I'm just going around in circles, and I'm going in a cycle that's in circles. So I did feel when I did share that, I was like, there needs to be some sort of plan here. So therefore, I'm going to feel better at some stage. And I think at that stage, it was no, keep coming. You know, we'll talk and we'll try and deal with these situations and put some perspective. And she said, I'll hold up a mirror, which was helpful. But after about 12 weeks, I just thought, this isn't helping me here. I'm not going in the right direction. So I did sort of pause that. So I think, you know, and other people that I know have been to traditional therapies, as much as they have served a purpose, I don't think they've ever solved the problem, but it's been a good place for them to communicate and share some of their experiences. Is that from all the therapy that you've done, is that common, I suppose, that you kind of in that situation?
I think if you've got, you know, a work issue that perhaps you're not getting on with somebody or something's happening and it's relatively simple, I think you can solve it with talking therapies.
Yeah.
But I think often the person doesn't know what's stuck in their subconscious brain. Because it's happened between the ages of 0 or even sometimes earlier when you're in the mother's womb.
Right.
So in the last trimester, it could have been something then.
Really? Wow.
So you can't remember. You can't remember when you were 1, 2, 3. You might remember something, you know, from the age of 3 or 4, but you can't really remember. So RTT will like go back to see what's going on for you, and often you can remember. You can go back to those times and go, that's why I feel the way that I do. That's what happens. And then in our RTT, what we do, we go inside and we speak to those parts that perhaps are ruining your life. You know, it might be anger, it might be frustration, and we find out why it's there. Why does it live there? And it has started when you were very young, and it's still very young, that part. So we have to upgrade that part because it's not serving you any longer.
So those early experiences, of course you're a child, maybe very hard for you as an adult to carry those beliefs forward. So you've kind of, situations have happened where, of course, you're young, so you're very vulnerable. But what you're saying is that from a psychological perspective, it's kind of created an imprint or a program in your brain somehow, in your mind somehow. And then because the mind is developing, the brain is developing, it's almost, then it sticks with you. I know, you know, a lot of psychology goes back to things that have happened in childhood, but that's what's happening there?
Yeah, it's you have to protect yourself at whatever age you are. So if you're young, and someone, you know, often this happens, doesn't it? When children are young, they go in for a play, and they're on the, and it's the Christmas play, and they have to go on stage, and then they forget their lines or they say something funny, as far as the audience are concerned, and so they laugh. And they're not laughing at the child, they're laughing because it's cute. But that child will remember that.
Yeah.
So many of the people that I see remember things that have shamed them when they are young. So.
And that's really their perception of the situation.
Yeah,
because they're a child.
Yeah.
Actually, their parents might have thought that was wonderful and cute and lovely, and they
yeah,
might remember that as a beautiful moment.
Yeah, but the child made it mean, I'm stupid, I'm silly. So they have to put a protector up. So the protector would go, you're never going to go on that stage again. You're never going to do that again. And so that child becomes shy, perhaps. Or perhaps they brush it off and they go, right, I'm just going to get angry. So the protector. So in everybody, it's different. but we all have these protectors in us until we, if they're not working for us, we need to change the protector because it's young, it's not helping. Does this make sense?
Yes, it does. Let's talk about though. From an RTP perspective, what is the protector and what's it there? What's it serving us for? So I know, you know, from Marissa, I've read couple of the books before I came to see you. I read some of her books, and she talks extensively about the protector. And one example she gave was someone who was a heroin addict, and what she was describing is only when she went into the therapy process was that actually, because I think other therapists had tried to treat this person, and they were trying to treat the heroin addiction. And she said, well, what's it there for? Why is it there? And what we realised was that person was suicidal, and the protector was the heroin addiction. So the heroin addiction actually kept that person alive because that was the last resort. And she only really got to that point because she really dug deep and was able to find out. So can we talk about what is the protector and kind of the role it serves us?
Well, the protector is protecting us from the wound. So if the wound is fear, we've been hurt in some way. So we have shame. It's that incident that I said when you're on the stage, everybody starts laughing, and you think, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And it comes from that wound that we have of not being good enough, not being smart enough, not being attractive enough. So Marissa says there's 3 things. One is we're not good enough. We don't fit in. It's not available to me.
Right.
So if there's anything that you have an issue in your life about, you look at those 3 things. Why is that happening? Why is that happening to you? Well, I'm not good enough. So you want a relationship. You want a loving relationship. Why can't you and someone can't get a loving relationship? Why can't they get a loving relationship? Well, they don't feel attractive enough, or they don't feel good enough, or they think it's not available to them.
Right.
So that's the wound. That's the hurt. That's the wound. That then the protector will come in and say and go, well, a protector could be angry, or it could be judgmental, or it could be critical, and it will keep you away from the wound of not feeling good enough. So when we go in through and being very relaxed, now we say that we use hypnosis, but hypnosis is a natural state. It's a state that you go into just before you go to sleep at night, and just as you're waking up in the morning.
I was going to ask you about the hypnosis state, because I asked you about this as well, which was, what's that going to be like, and what does that feel like? And hypnotherapy and hypnosis is, there's good parts to it, but there's maybe there's I think there's a wrong perception around it. And I think you made me feel very comfortable. You said it's just a deep, relaxed state. And then as soon as I kind of thought differently around it, and I'd say it is just a deep, relaxed state. And it's actually very peaceful. It's very lovely. And, it's kind of fully present, really, completely clear thinking. And now I'm able to go into that state whenever I choose. If I kind of have a few moments to myself, I can put myself in that state.
So it's self-hypnosis, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're putting yourself into that state. But it's a natural state. It's a state that we go to when we're just waking up in the morning. And I think these scientists say that children are in that state between the ages of 1 and 7.
Right.
So it's a lovely, lovely state to be in. But it's got some people, think, oh, are you going to put me under? And it's not like that. You know that you could have come out of that whenever you wanted to.
Yes. Yeah.
But it needs to go. You need to go to that relaxed place to access what's going on in your in your subconscious brain.
I think it's the most present you can be in that state. And I'll go back to an example because I've got a 2-year-old. It's easy for me to talk about someone who's... What I've noticed about observing Logan as a 2-year-old is he's fully present. He couldn't be more in the moment. Because his brain hasn't developed to the point where he can think about the past or think about the future, he is so in that moment constantly. He's playing with his toys, he's playing with us, he's having his dinner, then he's, we take him to nursery. But if we're playing with him first thing, just like this morning, we were playing with him, I said, do you want to go nursery? He says, no, because he doesn't want to go to nursery, because he's having great fun in that very second. Yeah. But by the time I've got him to nursery and he can see nursery there, he's excited about seeing Lily, and he's excited about, but he's so present to that moment. And then when I try and take him home, he's really upset because he's like, don't take me away from this great moment. By the time he's at home, he's seeing mummy and he's really happy again. So children are a wonderful example of complete presence. Yeah,
I know. And it's how we need to be a lot more. Like, we need to be childlike. We need to be in the moment, because that moment is brilliant, isn't it? It's
the most important thing.
It's just natural.
Yeah, it's the most important thing. And I think what happens, maybe it comes with age, or it maybe just comes with, experience, where a lot of rumination or thinking or overthinking, thinking about the past or the present, thinking about the past or thinking about the future, it really takes away from that moment that you're in.
Yes, yeah.
And that's what I felt like I was really struggling with. I was either in the past or I was already in the present, but I was never there. Yeah.
And we've only got the present moment, haven't we? I follow lots of lovely spiritual leaders, and Eckhart Tolle is one of them. And I listen to him very often on my run in the morning to get me into a really lovely state. And his famous book is The Power of Now. He's written many books, and it is about, we haven't got the past. The past is gone. The future hasn't arrived. We're missing something really special when we're not in the moment, and we learn, as you say, from your lovely son, and children, because they're just in the moment.
And you can probably look at lots of guides or leaders or people which say you've got to be more present. Now, I read about this extensively, about being more present, but I just couldn't get there. No. So what was the blocker? Because I would either be in the past or the future.
Yeah, well, habit. Habit. So your mind takes you back to what's familiar.
Right.
So you'll always go. That's why when you go to see somebody, a traditional coach, it's quite difficult, because you've got to change the habit. So it's going into the subconscious brain, finding out what's going on, and then transforming that thinking. But when you've transformed the thinking, you've still got the habit. So you've got to change the habit. So that's why, Simon, you had a recording that you listened to for 21 days.
Yeah.
Now, Marissa says that it takes 21 days to change a habit. And there's research now out to say that it's 66 days. But it doesn't matter if it's 21 days or 66 days. It's how long it takes you to change the habit. So that's why you have the recording, because the recording says how you want to be. And until you change that thinking that's in the subconscious brain, it will be very, very difficult for you to feel truly at one, to be your authentic self.
It's interesting. It's so interesting talking about it and sort of thinking about what we went through and how it's made a huge difference. The way I can probably describe it now, and we'll probably go through the process we went through, is that all the negativity that I had, which I didn't know why I had that negativity. And again, I was in a lovely life situation. I was in a really good life situation. So that's why I believe it can happen to anyone. But I would just be triggered. I'd be frustrated. I could feel it on me. I could feel it on my chest. I could feel angry. And it felt like for no apparent reason, or something really minor, like receiving an email, could trigger me. And then what I realized was just like this level of stress, and it was almost like this fog of darkness was just there. And I'd say now the outcome from going through the RTT process, I'd say almost immediately, and I don't know if this is going to happen for everybody, so I don't want to say it's going to, but for me, it had almost lifted immediately. And so the moment we came out of the therapy session, I was just, oh, I'm me. I feel better almost immediately. And of course I listened to the recording, and I was really fortunate because after that we had a holiday. And that was probably the best week of my life, the most present I've ever been. Didn't think about anything other than this moment with my wife and my son. We were right on the beach, just down in Bournemouth. And it was just, wow, what a delightful week. It was just amazing.
But I do remember, Simon, you contacted me within the 21 days, because when you came back and you went back into your normal life, not being on holiday, not with all the pressures when you were on holiday, but when you came back, there was a moment.
There was, yeah.
That you contacted me.
Yeah. So what happened was there, and I think I understand it better. Sometimes I would so during my most difficult times would be funny enough, would be at the weekend. That's actually when I suppose I should be in the most relaxed state I'd typically be in. But Sundays would actually be probably the most difficult for me. Maybe because I was thinking about work the next day. Oh, the week's starting again. Got all this stuff to do this week. The stress, everything else kind of rises to the top again. And what I realised happened when we came back from that holiday, I was in the living room. I can't remember if it was a Sunday or a Monday, but either way, I was going to work the next day. And I realised that was a triggering event. My mind went straight back to how it used to be. And I tried to listen to the recording, and I couldn't. I was too triggered. I couldn't get under. I couldn't sort of get myself into a relaxed state well enough that day. And then that's when I contacted you to say, oh God, I feel like I've gone back. But I actually felt like I went back worse, because I was like, this is awful. And but that made me feel really bad that day. And anyway, I put myself to bed early. I spoke to you, and I woke up the next day and I listened to the recording again. And then I suppose I was creating these new processes, because then, although I was back to my normal life, I actually felt calm again and content and happy, which is everything I'd asked to be. But there was a moment where my mind, because maybe it was remembering the day before work and how I used to feel and the stress and the anxiety of the next day and everything else, that memory was still logged there. Interesting. I've not had it since though.
No, but it's about when you get if you get those moments, to go, oh, that's interesting. Be curious about it. So, what do I want to feel like this? No, I don't want to feel like this. So I'm going to change how I think. I'm going to choose how I think. And I think that's what RTT allows us to do, is to have the choice. When you're run by your subconscious mind, you don't have a choice.
Yeah. And I think that's the worrying part, I think, for people that haven't been through this process. Now I've been through it, I'm wiser to it, and I can probably advise other people and what I'd recommend for them. But you have all this stuff that's in your subconscious, which is actually guiding a lot of your behaviours. And they can be quite negative behaviours. It certainly led to me to drink too much and eat too much and those sort of things, because it was like a way of releasing stress or,
Well, it's short-term benefit. And so when we drink or take drugs, it gives us a release. You want a
Yeah.
release. So that is your protector. It's giving you a release. And that's why you do it. But it's not long term.
Mm.
It won't help you long term. It's like alcohol, isn't it? Drinking alcohol or eating too much. You know, it gives you that short term gain.
Mm. And actually, I think back into my 20s, and although I probably wouldn't have associated a lot of these things, you know, back in my 20s, I always just thought of this as part of my personality. I'm this work hard, play hard kind of person. You know, I work really hard during the week, or
Yes.
work all the hours available. And at the weekends, I have a party. And that was my mindset. I just believed I was that person. But what I realise now is I was still in the same state. I was somehow completely not aware I was reacting to something in my subconscious, which is, why would I want that? You know, why would I want to respond in that way, which I would kill myself with work, working 12, 15 hours every day, trying to get ahead. But then at the weekend, I would let off all the steam. But actually, as soon as you'd have a drink, it would almost just relieve you from the stresses and put you in just a different mindset altogether. But for me, that would be then last the whole weekend during my 20s. But I realised that's a part of it. That was a component of it. It's just manifesting in a very different way to, you know, what I did in my 20s and here I am in my 40s. You know, it manifests really differently. But I still think it's part of the same thing.
It is, yeah. To hear you talk about you having an RTT session. Some people come along to me. I had a lovely lady who had bulimia.
Right.
And it was just before lockdown. And on Marissa's training, she teaches us to do the therapy over Zoom because otherwise you can only get to people who are within an hour of coming to you. So, my limiting belief was, you can't do this over Zoom. But what is so wonderful about Marissa's training is that you have to demonstrate that you can do this. You can. So every RTT therapist would have been watched to see that they follow the process, because we have to follow a process. Yes, you can deviate a bit from it, but you have a process to follow. And so I forgot.
That's okay. You're just saying there's a process.
Yeah.
Part of the training, there's a process which you go through. Because, of course, there is the process you go through. Experiencing it firsthand, which was in person, I was a bit surprised that you could achieve this over Zoom.
Yeah.
But I think you've got some real world experiences that have allowed you to experience it over Zoom.
So when lockdown happened, although I'd done the training on Zoom, I thought, I'm not doing it. I won't get the results. So that was my limiting belief. But then lockdown happened. So where I used to see people at the treatment hub in Basingstoke, we all had to close down. So I had this lady who was coming to see me that had bulimia. Right. So we had to do it on Zoom. And if someone comes on my program, we have a discovery call first. So I find out a lot about them, about their past, what their life is like now. And this lady said to me, she said, I've had bulimia for 30 years. Wow. She said, you won't be able to cure me in just an RTT, in your RTT program. Would you be willing to stay with me afterwards? I said, yes, of course. But let's see how we get on with the program first of all. And some people do stay with me afterwards because there's other issues they might have career issues or other issues that they want to talk about. And she had my 21-day program. And then at the end of it, it was like you said, I'm never going back. never going back to
How you felt before?
yeah, what she used to do, like eat and then make herself sick. I'm never doing that again. I won't do it again. I know I won't do it again. And that was after 30 years of her having all different types of therapies.
And then what changed for her? Because holding on to something for 30 years, bulimia, horrible thing for someone to have. Obviously, it's a mental, it's in your mind. But what changed? What changed during that process?
Well, it changed her thinking about everything. She went into the subconscious mind. She knew why she was doing what she was doing. She didn't know why she was doing what she was doing or what was holding her back. And so then she rejected doing it. She changed her thinking. It's as simple. It sounds simple, but it's like change your thoughts, change your life.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It's just saying, no, stop it. I'm not doing that anymore.
But I think you have to have the support of someone who's trained in RTT, because as much as I read a couple of Marissa's books and I could understand the process, just think better, just have this. I mean, you can probably get away with that for a day or two, think positively, write positive affirmations. But at some stage, if you're not in the best of places, negative thinking will come back and it will get you, and then it will grow and it will grow.
And it's because it's a habit.
Yeah.
So once you change, if you can change the habit on your own, and there's a lot of things that you can do, things that I know you have done, is like exercise, really good, because that releases other chemicals. Because what you want to happen is to put happy chemicals in your body, not toxic chemicals.
Yeah.
Stress is toxic chemicals that going in your body. So it brings you down. It's like a negative energy, and you're carrying around a big load on your back when you've got negative energy in your system. When you go into higher self, I call it higher self,
Yeah, I think that's
of
a nice
love
description.
and compassion and joy and laughter and fun and happiness, that is how you are. You feel light. And that's where you want to be. So moving from that lower energy of frustration, fear, anger, resentment, hatred, to moving to that higher energy of love and compassion and gratitude. When you're in that, you're producing all the right chemicals in your body. So that's what we're aiming to do.
And is that similar for most people that come to you, that they're in this lower negative self and they're quite simply just trying to get to that point of love, content, calm, feeling of gratitude? Are most people kind of in that same place where they just they want
they've
to
got
come
that
out
heavy and the word that most people use after the session is, I feel lighter.
Yes, I did.
It's like, I don't know what happened there. I just feel lighter.
Yeah.
Now, habit can pull you back again. So it's about making sure that you change your thinking, that even if you don't feel it, fake it till you make it.
Because you have to, because that's what I'm learning, is that it's all about the habits in your mind, and it's the words you're telling yourself, and therefore, it's the habits, it's the words that you're telling yourself. And if those negative thoughts get in, then you
pull down with that negative energy. It's heavy. It's a heavy energy, and so the first thing for anybody listening is to say, what do you think? Do you know what you think? It's just because your thinking is on autopilot.
It is, yeah.
So you may not even realise that you're saying these things about yourself, or you're criticising other people, or you're being judgmental. Because if you're criticizing other people, you have criticism within yourself. You're very usually you criticize yourself first.
Right. So even if you're being negative, not necessarily to yourself, but you're being critical of the people around you or the situation around you, it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same.
So it's still, because
Yeah,
it's still
put the
coming
mirror
from.
up.
Yeah,
Put
it's
the
still
mirror
coming
up.
from a negative.
It is. It's coming from negativity. Yeah. So this is to put happy chemicals in your body, because when you've got the happy chemicals, the healthy chemicals, it helps your immune system as well. I'm passionate about wanting to help people keep their immune system strong, because I work with people who have got, been diagnosed with cancer.
Right.
And it's for me to help them to get those happy chemicals within them, those higher energies within them, so that they can fight the cancer. But if you look back and you see what's happened to them, often their program is running, and now they're fearful. So if you've got a life-threatening disease, it's terrible. It's fearful. So if we can change that, there's been some wonderful miracles that have happened through people changing their belief structure.
Do you think that can really make a difference? So if you change your belief structure and change the chemicals in your body, it can actually be because I know Marissa talked about it in her book, and I know she had cancer. And she said she went through a process where she hypnotized herself. She went in. She still had the treatment. It's not like this is
no.
She still absolutely had the treatment. And then she was on stage a few days later delivering a talk, and she just said, "Well, I'll do the treatment, but I'm going to be back on stage. And I'm going to be treating, and I'm going to be talking to people because that's what I have to do. That's So do you think this work that you can do with the mind can really have that positive effect on your physical being, and if you've got illness?
Yeah, mind and body
Really
is so powerful, so powerful. So yeah, I think I completely believe in it. I completely get it. Marissa's story is, one of the proofs, and there's lots of proofs. People say it's miracle. Oh, I was told I had terminal cancer. The normal procedures or chemo hasn't worked, but they're still alive. But it's mind and body, obviously. It's there's this wonderful book called Radical Remission by Kelly Turner, and she talks about how the mind is so powerful, and people that have been told we can't do anything more have changed. Dr. Joe Dispenza is another guy, who is one of the leaders in mind and body health.
Wow. I mean, I knew this was powerful, but I didn't know it could go that far. But I suppose
it does for many people.
Yeah.
Many people. It's not for you wouldn't. I don't want people to feel that, I've caused my own cancer, because that's not true at all.
Sure, no, it's very situational.
There's so many things that cause our body not to work properly, but you give yourself the best chance of survival by looking to see what's going on in your emotional state, in your belief structure. And many people have done that. So, yeah.
Wow, it's powerful stuff. Interesting though, we're here talking about all the positive benefits of RTT, but oddly, you know, even when I did a bit of research this morning and I looked up Marissa, and the first thing that came up was this article from the Times saying how this was, I'm trying to remember the title of it. Marissa Pear makes millions from dangerous therapy. It just, so, and I know this isn't something that's been accepted on the NHS yet, for example. So why isn't it become mainstream as being something that should be available to everyone? Because at the moment, I think it's only available privately. So why do you think there's resistance? There can be resistance to this type of approach.
I mean,
it's hard for me to understand.
Again, it's habit. It's looking into the medical profession and how they are the medical profession are trained. It's not a nutrition.
Yeah.
One thing, and this has come from Marissa herself. She has been doing it herself for 30 years, but it takes a long time to get things changed. And it's quite a threat, isn't it?
Yeah.
To say, well, look, come along for an RTT program, and you'll be transformed. When traditional therapy, you go for years. You can go for years and not change.
From all the patients that you've seen with RTT, and a lot of it talks about having a single therapy session, and then of course repeating, listening to the recording for 21 days, maybe extending it further if need be. But how many of your patients have had a successful outcome from having a single therapy session?
Well, I haven't done I can't exactly tell you.
Of course.
But I can't, well, it's well over 90%.
Wow.
You know, because I love those 21-day reviews. So people come, they have a discovery call, and then I find out about them. But when they have the session, which is 2 to 2.5 hours, they're not. We're not talking over again their issue. They're in their nice, comfortable hypnotherapy chair, which is just a nice recliner.
Yeah.
And then we run the session. And then they go away during that 21 days, like you. If you had an issue, you phone me. We discuss it. You get back on track. And then at the end of the 21 days, you have a review. And I absolutely love those reviews, because it was like, well, I've changed. I don't know what's happened, but things are changing in my life. I feel so much better. I feel lighter. I feel all those lovely, lovely feelings now, those chemicals in my body. So there will be times when there will be not so much change. The person hasn't been able to quite reach that level of euphoria. Then it might need another RTT session, or it might need some mentoring to help that person. But it's highly successful.
Is it for someone that maybe it doesn't work? I mean, 90% is an unbelievable number, especially if I think about the number of people that I know that have done traditional talking therapies, and they come out and they that's a high number of people that have come out and said, it's not quite worked for me. For a 90% success rate where people come out and they feel lighter and they feel better, and their issues have either just gone away or they're just not there.
Or they can handle them.
Or they can manage them, yeah. I think that's it.
Because that's my strapline. What I want, what I'm passionate about, is we can't change things that happen in life. Things come and hit us. But I want my clients to say, whatever comes my way, I can handle this. and they feel good about handling it. So they find solutions. They're not with the problem all the time. The problem is. Because when you've got a problem and you haven't got a solution, you stay in that fear.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting. It's just. I mean, you've made such a massive difference to so many people's lives. I mean, in that 10% that maybe it doesn't work for, is that because either the problems are deep rooted, or is it because they're resistant to taking on board the recommendation? So, for example, when we went through our therapy session, I just went into it fully trusting that I was just fully committed. I researched it enough, and I just said, whatever you're going to suggest that I do, I was just going to do. I was just going to listen and do it. I'd made that decision before, so I knew when we kind of went into the relaxed state, there was a part of that which was, I was like, am I going to let go here or not? Because I could have easily fought that moment, and I feel like some people could fight that moment. When you're sort of going into that relaxed state. Do you sometimes find that there's a resilient mind that's kind of resists in some respects?
Well, it often is the environment around the person as well.
Yeah.
For you did have a really happy life.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I still do.
And
yeah.
so, and you do have a happy life. For people who are in, an unhappy marriage, or in a happy relationship, or in an unhappy job,
Right.
much harder.
Of course, yeah.
So it's for them to perhaps have the courage to end that relationship, because it's not going to go anywhere, or get out of that job. So it's about, sometimes it's hard for people to find that courage to change. But I always say, if it hasn't worked, I'll give you your money back. Even though I've done a lot of work to help that person with the process, I don't want to take money from people who it hasn't worked. And do you know how many people I've given money back to?
I don't. Go on.
One
person. Wow.
One person. And that person had lots and lots of issues. And I really knew from the moment that I met the person that they wasn't going to change. They were so deep-rooted. You've got to have a willingness to want to change. So if you haven't got that willingness, I do say, I think I said to you as well, if I had a magic wand, what would you like to achieve? So,
and I think that's an important part. It's a good question, actually, because I think you shared that with me a month or two before we actually went through the therapy sessions, and actually it gave me a bit of time to really think about things, and then think about kind of where you are in your life, what do you actually want to change. And what I realised was that, I mean, I didn't really realise this, but, the life that I've got is the life I wanted. I'm happily married with the woman of my dreams. I've got little Logan. We're in a wonderful place in life. But I just had these things that were holding me back. And, maybe for whatever reason, it just hit me at that time. And I just didn't want to react to these things anymore. I just wanted to have a bit more control and not get triggered and not get frustrated and not be angry. I think it's almost a bizarre thing to say, I'm at the happiest stage of my life, but then this is when, all this resentment and anger has hit me. And I just wanted that to go away, which I'm really pleased to say, here I am a couple of months later, and that has gone away, But there are triggering events that happen, but now I have tools and a process, if something happens, where I can go back very quickly back to this nice state that I've been able to achieve, where I'm just calm, present, happy. I still have my determination and motivation, which I was a bit nervous about losing that, But then I realised that's not something you're going to lose. You just become more present and calm,
Yeah.
which is what I really wanted
Yeah.
as an outcome.
Yeah. So I saw a lovely lady who she'd had a very traumatic upbringing. And through that, she was so determined that she wanted to get out of her situation. And she had she had achieved so much in her life. She even got a scholarship to go over to America. And I don't want to say too much because I don't, obviously it's
Sure.
confidential.
Please, yeah.
Who the person is. But she had, when we looked in and we looked at the part within her that was never letting her be free, always telling her she had to get on, she mustn't waste time, she mustn't relax, she mustn't be calm. There would always be someone trying to bring her down. So we found that protector in her, because it was a protector, because it was telling her to get out of her really bad situation, because behind that was, well, she could have been killed actually, because the abuse was a very abusive relationship. And so when we came in to get rid of that protector because it was young, she didn't want it to go, because she said, but I'll lose my, if it goes, I might not have the drive, I might not have the determination, so we changed it into something else. We changed it into, so because that was a young protector, that disciplinarian, that one telling her off all the time, it was like a bully just telling her what to do. And it's changing that to be, well, I think we changed it into a guardian angel.
Right.
Who was, or she did, because it obviously has to come from the person that's now saying, yeah, of course you're good enough. Yeah, you're brilliant. You can do that. And she's got that part of her now that's not bullying her anymore. Because most people, when they're in a negative frame of mind, they've got a bully in their head. It's like, you wouldn't have a friend who was bullying you all the time, but that's what people have in their head.
Yeah. Why do you think that happens? Why do you think we end up then with this bully or this negative,
Because we've been programmed into it. It just comes back to when we were younger. We were told, oh, you're mucky, you're silly, you're accident prone, your brother does better than you.
So it really is those words, all these words.
Yeah. And it's what then you make it mean. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I don't fit in. Oh, and the one thing as a human being we don't want is rejection. So we do everything when we're younger, try not to be rejected.
Yeah.
I know I see teenagers, and then you find that perhaps they've taken drugs. Why would you take drugs? Why would you do that, to yourself when you know that they're so bad for you? It's to be in the group, because you'll get rejected if you don't take the drugs. And it's so powerful.
Well, I
you don't want to be rejected.
Well, I think back to you're 14, 15, 16, the group starts smoking, and then you choose to smoke because that's what the group's doing. And then you've got your group of friends and they're all smoking. Probably no one's enjoying it, by the way, but because it's cool or perceived as cool because your friends are now doing it, you're now kind of brought into doing it because it's naughty, and especially if you're below 16, and that's the, I suppose it's the tribe within us from our past. It's like we want to be accepted into the group,
absolutely.
and then I think we're very subjective to that.
Because years and years ago, if we got rejected, we'd die because we'd be outside of the tribe. So that obviously isn't going to happen now, but it's still a belief within us. We mustn't be rejected.
So how many of those, like, I use the word ancient, I don't know if that's the right description, but those beliefs from way before our lives are still there. So, you talk about rejection because of being rejected from the tribe. I mean, that's probably from, I don't know, hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, I know.
It's still
the patterns.
It's the evolution of the mind. It's still there.
And the patterns that go down from generation to generation. It's like it's often when we go into the hypnosis part or the relaxation, and we're talking about patterns, although it will be different for my client, it will still be the same pattern that's come from the parent, from the parents or the grandparents. You can pick up those patterns. It's like, oh, I don't want to be like my father. I don't want to be. But that's how they're playing it out, because they're being perhaps bullying, or they're perhaps angry, and they've got that same pattern. And when they see that pattern, they go, oh, no, I'm not letting that define me any longer.
That's interesting, because actually I look at that and think a lot of our behaviours do come from parents. We consciously or unconsciously, I joke with my mum, by the way, because she's beginning to act a little bit like my nan. and she's got, she's got a dog. She does exactly the same behaviour as what my nan used to, as my nan was getting slightly a bit older. And my mum will watch this, so I've got to be really careful. And I joke and say, you're turning into Nan. But consciously or subconsciously, she is in some respects. She still loves her long walks, so did Nan. She's got a dog, so did Nan. And every day she becomes a little bit like her in some respects. But if we take it all the way back, those traits you can inherit from your parents. And what's my point here? I suppose it's just being aware that we're not necessarily putting those thoughts or even wanting to have some of those habits. Sometimes now when I think about my parents, there are parts of them where I've taken on which I really like. I think, from my mum, I've got some great qualities. From my dad, the work side of it, the determination to get stuff done, to provide for family, wonderful habits to have. But there are some bits where now I can look back and go, oh, I don't want those parts.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the beauty, isn't it? You can now say you're not programmed into having all the parts. You're choosing which parts to have and which to reject.
But before you go through the therapy, you don't always know that you've taken on a trait, or maybe you do, maybe you are aware of you've taken on a trait and you just don't want to have those traits anymore. I don't know.
I think on the whole, people don't know. And that's why I would love RTT to absolutely be part of the NHS.
Yeah.
Because they could send people that have got all kinds of illnesses. People get labelled. They come to me and they say, oh, I've got ADHD, or I've got manic depression, or, and they've been given a label. And when you're given a label, you act it out.
Right, so you then become that label, you become that person.
It's like,
and that becomes your excuse or your identity.
We're rejecting that. We're not having that. Yeah, all right, you've got some tendencies, but don't label yourself. Don't give yourself that label. It's not true. Just someone has given it to you. It's a limiting belief. So I would love any doctors that are listening to this to look into RTT for, their clients who are having, they're having emotional issues, or their emotions are tied up with their physical illness. And be open-minded. Send people to to a therapist, contact Marissa. NHS, contact Marissa, because thousands will be saved for the NHS.
I believe Marissa was talking about it previously, which was she was talking that she became the therapist in some respect, and it was because people were being sent to her because other people, they weren't getting treated in the right way, whether it, I know she was in the US at the time, so I don't know if there's a different setup, but her most difficult patients were being sent to her because other therapists weren't able to fix or work with them, or they weren't able to get to the root causes. And then that's when they said, oh, now you need to try the RTT. And it's almost like in this country, we need this to be part of everything. So therefore people can go straight to RTT, or, instead of getting these labels or something, because that in itself isn't going to help.
Yeah, so I hope your podcast will do that, Simon.
I hope so too. Well, listen, I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for coming here today. I hope as an outcome, and hopefully from me sharing to people about my experiences, that more people are going to come to see you, more people are going to come to see RTT therapists, because it's made a huge difference to my life. And it's made a huge difference to my family's life. I'm far more present to little Logan, and I'm able to play with him and be there with him, and far better for my wife. And it's just taking away the negative thoughts. And I think this can help a lot of people.
So do you want my website, just in case?
Sure, please do. I'll certainly share it as part of it being posted. But you can share, please.
So it's www.linda.cant.com.
Perfect.
And I have a free call for 20 minutes or so. And we can go from there.
I think so. And I can only wholeheartedly recommend it, because it's made a huge difference to me. So thank you so much again. I really appreciate it. And
thank you.
I hope this can go off and save more people.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Simon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.